Hello and welcome to today's Döhle Yachts coffee break. My name is Joe Assail and today I'm joined by this beautiful fire by our fleet statutory manager, Ben Geary.
Hi there.
So the fire might have given it away slightly, but what we are doing today is we're going to talk to you about recreational fire appliances. We've been working on a couple of projects recently where there is still a lot of questions surrounding fireplaces on board yachts. So we thought we'd shed a little light on the regulations, what they involve and where they come from. So I'm going to kick off by just reading what the definition of a recreational fire appliance is from the REG Yacht Code. Now, this is defined as means of heating or cooking appliances with open flames such as fireplaces, charcoal galley, ovens, barbecues, spit roasts and fire pits, or recreational fire appliances. So Ben, do you want to give us a little bit of history here? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so you kind of first saw this appear in the common annexes of the Reg Code. And the reason this was industry were asking a lot of questions at the time, and class societies all had experience of some kind of fireplace, mainly on passenger ships as aesthetics, but they were all slightly different. So what they wanted to do is trying to harmonise that in a clear, precise way that industry could follow. So you've got that in the Reg Code, and recently actually Marshall Islands in MN 201157 have basically adopted the same approach. So again, giving you clear guidance on what they are and how to use them.
And I think that's key there, that this is guidance at this stage.
Yes.
This is not prescriptive regulations.
No, again, it's how the code and others are assisting the industry and giving them some kind of guidance in what they need to think about, what needs to be aware, the risks, etc., rather than dictating this is what you have to do.
So when we do start to look at those risks, whether it's a designer or an operator, what kind of elements do we need to consider when looking to put a recreational fire appliance on board a boat?
I suppose when you look at it and the way the rules are set out, you've got obviously lots of different kind of recreational fire appliances to start with. So whether it's solid fuel, ethanol, LPG, charcoal, so all of those bring their own aspects. So basically you've got to look at things like ventilation. You've got to look at structural fire protection. You've got to look at firefighting systems, being able to shut the fuel down. You've got to be able to look at gas detection on some of these systems, and then also the storage of the fuel source.
Okay, so not dissimilar to how we would normally protect a normal vessel. Shut down the ventilation, control the fuel source, and make sure that anything that's burning is not in close proximity to combustible materials.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, when people started to look at fireplaces, the view of risk is quite high because obviously you've got an open flame. So most yachts, and anything we look at, when we talk about fire, it's always those hidden aspects, structural fire protection against the development of a flame. When we're talking about recreational fire appliances, you are going to have an open flame source. But like anything, the risk-based approach, looking at that sensibly, looking at where you're going to put it, the ventilation aspects to it, how it's going to be used, when it's going to be used, where you store the fuel, all these different components, when you look at that on a risk-based approach or even just a sensible approach, you can minimize the risk.
And I think given there's all those different kind of interlocking aspects that we need to consider, I'm assuming we're going to have to be engaging, again, given that this is guidelines and not prescriptive regulations, with the regulators quite early on. Our normal message.
It is, yeah, it's our classic message, and it's our favourite message, but it's key. Talking to your class society and your flag representation right at the beginning, because obviously this is going to be a feature, and it's going to be something that's been taught with the owner right early on. The designers are going to have this fundamentally in place, but talk to class, talk to flag, because again, the ventilation duct routing, where the fuel is stored practically for crew to get it and put it where the fire needs to be. Gas detection monitoring, is it going to be in a saloon? Is it going to be in a master stateroom? All of that needs to be discussed early on. And again, if it's discussed early on, a lot of those mitigating measures can be thought about, designed in, and it makes life a lot easier.
And of course, we're not just talking about on the interior of the vessel here either, are we?
No. So again, you can have your barbecues, your spit roast on the open deck. Also, fire pits are now being looked at. And again, it's where they're positioned. It's, you know, looking at the gas. Mainly, some of these are gas powered. So again, it's looking at the ventilation for these spaces, gas detection systems, fuel shutdowns are key. And again, talk to the class flag representatives about that early on in the design stage.
So if we're looking at following these guidelines and the owner or the designer, or we're having this conversation about using a fire appliance, a recreational fire appliance on board, what if it's not quite fitting in within these guidelines? Do we have alternative routes we can follow?
Yes, so again, the way the codes are laid out and the annexes, again, it's guidance. So if it doesn't fall into one of these sections, then you can always do the hazard approach. So again, class and flag, most class societies will have a process for that, FMEA, of where you're again mitigating risk. So if it's not prescriptive as it is in the guidance, the guidance you can have with the FMEAs and with the risk approach means it allows you that freedom. But again, you need the right people around the table. So you need the designers, you need the yards, you need the class, you need the flag, probably the owners representation as well, because a lot of these things will be put on an operational aspect, which again then the crew need to look at from a practical point of view. But again, it's not impossible, you just need the right people around the table at the beginning.
Great, so when we follow an FMEA, that being a failure mode effect analysis, or a hazard, which is kind of a formalized hazard identification process, we're going to have even more flexibility to be able to achieve hopefully the owners or the designers kind of wildest dreams and fulfill what they want.
I mean it's a more long-winded approach and it takes a lot more work and also from all parties, but definitely it allows the freedom to do what the designer wants, what the owner wants. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking at.
Great. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining me by this beautiful fire today.
No worries.
As ever, if anyone has any follow-up questions, get in touch with us. Our contact details will be on the video in a moment. Alternatively, leave a comment below, and we look forward to hearing from you. And Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you.